रेडियो साउथ एशिया ਤੇ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਬਸੋਤਾ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਾਸ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮਿਲਵੁੱਡ ਰਾਈਡਿੰਗ ਤੋਂ ਨਵੇਂ ਐਲਾਨੇ ਗਏ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਬੈਨ ਹੈਂਡਰਸਨ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਲਾਈਨ ਤੇ ਨੇ। ਬੈਨ ਹੈਂਡਰਸਨ, ਗੁੱਡ ਈਵਨਿੰਗ।
Good evening.
And welcome to my radio show.
I'm delighted to be here.
You are a official federal candidate now from the Millwoods riding for federal elections. So my question is, why are you joining the federal politics, leaving the city politics?
Well, I had already decided to leave city politics. I've had 14 very good years here. I'm very proud of the work I'd done, but I felt I'd done what I could do at the city, that there was a chance to make room for new people to come in with new energy. When this opportunity came up to look at representing the city, though, in Ottawa, something that I actually have been doing over the years, I have a fair amount of experience doing that in Ottawa. I felt that it was a really good way to continue the work that I've been doing on behalf of Edmonton. I think it's really, really important that we as a city and Millwoods as a riding have a voice in government and have somebody there. We've not had that for the last couple of years, and I think it really makes a difference in terms of making sure the decisions are made in Ottawa are made with an understanding of what Edmonton is all about and what a constituency in a riding like Edmonton Millwoods is all about. And that's so important, I think, to the long-term health and future of our city, which is something I've been working on all the way along. This just is another way of taking those next steps and making sure that we continue to flourish as a city.
That's right. What are main issues for Millwood riding at present?
I think Millwoods is very similar to actually the rest of Edmonton and the rest of Canada. Quite frankly, I think people are concerned about their work, about their jobs, about coming out of COVID and being able to do that in a way that is healthy, and that people are going to be able to flourish in the future. And I think it's a really critical time for Edmonton that we get that right. It's been a very strange and odd 2 years, and a lot of people have really hurt and suffered, but this is our chance now to rebuild and make sure we rebuild strongly. So I think that's, one of the things, obviously, that is a big concern for people. Millwoods is, one of the really special things about Millwoods is that it really represents, I think, better than any other part of our city, the true diversity that makes the city special. And that's cultural diversity, that's social diversity. It really is the kind of best example, I think, in this city of what makes Edmonton Edmonton. And I think being able to make sure that perspective goes forward, that perspective is heard, that perspective is represented, I think is really important. I'm really curious to get on the doors and get out there and start talking to people and really to find out what's mattering to them. It's one of the really good things about going into election campaigns. It's the best chance to find out what people really do care about, what's really important. But I think there's a number of issues. There's a lot of young families in Millwoods, and we've had some huge successes recently with support for young families, with the child tax benefit, which was a great benefit in Millwoods, I know. And now we've got the support coming for early childhood care that hopefully we can get the province to play along with. I mean, the federal money's there. So I think those are things that are really important. But I think, making sure that diverse voice is represented and it's particularly important. I'm worried in Canada and in the city with some of the backlash we've seen around racism, and I think that's a huge issue that we have to step up and deal with. So I've been working at the city very hard on our whole anti-racism strategies, and I think that's just as much as true across the city, but it's a particular worry in a community that's as diverse as Millwoods is, but I think it's part of. I think it's part of that wonderful mix in Millwoods that makes the area so special. So there's a whole bunch of things. There's some things that I think we have managed to achieve and accomplish that I've had a big hand in. I'm really looking forward to the LRT opening, which should be soon. And I fought really hard to get the 50th Street rail overpass built that hopefully will allow people in and out of Millwoods way more easily without having to wait for that train. We've done I've done a lot of work on trying to deal with some of the long-standing issues around overland flooding and getting proper funding into that. So those are things that we've had federal help with, but the city's also stepped up. So I think there's a lot of things across the riding that people are going to care about, and it's Millwoods and the Meadows, right? So it's two different communities of different ages, and I think that's the other thing that really makes it interesting and exciting as well.
Okay, among these issues, what will be your top priority in the Millwoods?
I think my top priority is really around that healthy economic future for people and making sure that we can get back to thriving. I remember door knocking with Amarjeet in the last election and just hearing how worried people were about work, about what was happening, because so many people were also affected. Not just that was pre-COVID. We're also affected by what was happening in the oil patch. And we have to have answers to that. We're going to have to figure out, and I'm sure we can. I think it's one of the things that we're really good at in this city. How to make sure in the new world we're going into that we can continue to prosper and everybody can have a good job and have a good standard of living, and that's I think got to be the first priority for how we move forward, and in the immediate term, how we deal with that in this immediate post-COVID world.
Okay. This year, two burning issues for referendum will be there on the civic ballot paper, so which include the equalization of the payments and the daylight saving. How do you take these two issues? First of all, let me know whether you are agree with this, that these issues should be on the civic ballot paper or not.
No, I don't think they should be on the civic ballot paper. I mean, obviously that's not part of the world that I'm going to be in anymore. But I think it's there different orders of government have different responsibilities and do different things, and it should be part of the democratic process not to mix them together because they are different. And I think trying to bring a provincial agenda into a civic election is runs the risk of undermining a good democratic process in the civic election. So I think that the daylight savings time is less problematic. I think it's and probably less fraught. But the whole question of bringing equalization payments and putting it on a civic agenda where it really is not a civic issue in any sense of the word. There's no real jurisdiction. It's not something that even no matter what the vote does, it will have no particular meaning. So I feel for the municipal candidates that are going to have it muddying what should be a debate about what happens in the city next.
Alberta Justice Minister says that the pepper spray should be legalized. What do you want to say about this issue?
I think the police have come out against that and have said in no uncertain terms that it may create more problems than it solves. I think I certainly understand the instinct that people want to defend themselves, but the trouble is these are not just defensive weapons, they can also be offensive weapons. And legalizing something that can be an offensive weapon that can be just as easily used by people to create crime as to protect themselves from it, I think it's probably dangerous. So, I mean, I certainly understand the instincts. I understand absolutely that we need to find a way that people can feel safe. And I talked about a lot of the kind of racist incidents we've had before. I understand the instinct. I certainly support the idea that we need to make sure that people are safe. But I'm not convinced that pepper spray is the way to go to do that. I think it might create more problems than it solves because it is a weapon and can be used as a weapon. So I take the advice from the police on that one. They're suggesting it's not a good idea.
Right.
And
that's right. Now, Kenny says there should be a separate police for Alberta other than the RCMP. What is your opinion about this?
I think it's not an issue that has particularly been important in Edmonton because we, unlike most other, the only other, I think, police force in Alberta, I could be wrong about this, is Calgary. So we have our own police force. I think in the rural areas, it's a different situation where and in the smaller towns, it's a different situation where they're dependent on the RCMP to do their local policing as well. I don't know what the cost implications are, and I don't know what the governance implications are. So it's not particularly an issue for Edmonton because I'm not sure how much it would affect us. If it doesn't make sense to me if it's going to cost significantly more money. I'm not sure what the benefits are, but I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on that one. In Edmonton, we have our own police force, and so it plays out slightly differently for us.
Yesterday, United Nations has released a climate report. So if we keep in view Alberta, how do you take this report for Albertans?
I think we have to take it seriously. I don't think we can put our heads in the sand and suggest that it's not going to have impact on us or it isn't something we have to deal with. But I do think, and this is why, again, it's so important to have our voice in Ottawa in those discussions, that obviously how we adjust and adapt has different repercussions in Alberta than it does for the rest of the country, and we cannot minimize that. So I'm not prepared to pretend that we are ever going to go back to the way it was here. I think, the provincial idea that we can roll the clock back and go back to the way we used, the way we approached oil and natural gas in the past, I don't think the world is going to let us do that. I think we're going to have to get used to the idea that we can't roll that clock back. But what is really important is that we don't tie our hands here in terms of how we adapt and what we do next. We need some time to make that happen. We have a very highly educated, very well trained population. It's one of the more highly educated populations in the country. I think we really need to find ways to support those workers, those highly trained people, to figure out how to adapt to what's going to have to happen next. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I think we can that we can roll that clock back. I don't think we can. I think we're kidding ourselves if that's the case. But I think we need to understand that this is an opportunity for us to use the skills we have, to use the knowledge we have, to make sure we get at the forefront of whatever happens next. And that's the challenge. And I don't think pretending I don't think pretending that we can avoid that challenge is going to help us at all. We have to use our ingenuity to take it on.
Okay. All COVID-19 restrictions have been removed in Alberta. Doctors, educationists, and the other people say it is risky for the Albertans, especially for the kids. How do you take all this?
I'm hearing from a lot of parents in particular that are very worried about what's going to happen with all these restrictions taken off. I mean, I'm not a medical person myself. I am puzzled by the decision to walk away from testing. I mean, I understand where it may be coming from. I understand that we need to be getting used to the fact that COVID's never going to entirely go away. But I know that there's a lot of people, particularly, that are worried about their kids going back to school. They're not vaccinated. They can't be vaccinated, and how we're going to deal with that. And when any of these decisions are made, they're largely out of our hands in the city. They're provincial decisions. Whenever these decisions are made, you hope that it works out for the best. But I certainly understand the worries that I'm hearing from a lot, particularly of parents. That we're just moving way too fast on this, and that their kids are going to be at risk, and that all the people that are still unvaccinated could be put on risk. And we debated this at City Hall, and I know it was a very close vote. My inclination was not to lift the masking bylaw quite as quickly as we did, because I think we just really needed to see what happened. I think doing everything all at once made me nervous. And I also worried, and I think this is going to be true for the schools as well, that part of it is helping people feel safe going back. We need to open up our city again. We need to open up our economy. We need to open up the province again. But we need to do that in a way that people are comfortable doing. And if they don't feel safe going out anymore because they don't know if the person next to them who's not wearing a mask is going to make them ill, they may do exactly what we want them to do, which is go out and start to enjoy our city again. So I think we need to do things that not only are safe for our population, but make them feel safe. And I think the real worry about where we're at, particularly with the kids going back to school, is so many parents don't feel safe, and they don't feel their kids are safe.
That's correct. During the last federal election, Liberals could not get any seat from Alberta. What was the reason behind this? Do you expect any change this time?
I think it's a very different time. I think a lot has happened in the world in the last 2 years. I was upset that nobody was returned last time. I thought that was a big mistake, and I think we didn't do ourselves any favors by losing some really important voices that we had from our table in government. And so I think I think some people now realize that was a mistake. I think a lot of it got caught up in the pipeline debate. And, ironically, in the end, Amarjeet worked really hard on that pipeline, and he delivered on that pipeline. The one that he was committed to is the one that's being built. So, and I know some people feel differently about that, but I think it was a very particular time. I think the province was in a different place. But I think in the end we did not help our cause here in Alberta, and it's not because there was any ill will towards Alberta from the government, but you have to have somebody who understands us at the table, and it is the rest of the country thinks they understand Edmonton and thinks they understand Alberta, but we're a much more complex and interesting place, I think, than we're ever given credit for, and that's why having someone there who gets who we are, who lives here, who is totally committed to this city and can say, this is what's actually going on out there, is so important for this city.
Any message you want to convey in the end to our listeners?
I'm really looking forward to getting into Millwoods and the Meadows and meeting people and listening to people and hearing from them. My background has always been about community and supporting community, and we're hoping I can get on now that I'm officially nominated. We're hoping that I can get on the doors and start meeting people right away because I really need to hear from the community what's important to them. I mean, I know what I've heard from people, over the last couple of years, but I'm really, really looking forward to meeting as many people as possible. It's one of the real joys of going into. We don't know when there's going to be an election, but it's one of the real joys of going into a campaign. It's a great opportunity to actually get into every part of the community and find out what's really going on for people and what really matters to people. So I guess my message is I'm really looking forward to meeting as many people as I possibly can and hearing what's important to people, because when I get elected, it will be my job to make sure that what they care about is communicated on their behalf in Ottawa. So yeah, that's, I guess, my main message.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, for joining my show and sparing your valuable time for our listeners. And talk to you soon.
I was delighted to do it. Great, and thank you very much for doing this.